Last winter, a woman came into my clinic. 71 years old, sharp-witted, lively. The kind of person who never forgets a birthday. She told me something that stopped me mid-sentence. One morning, she had woken up, and 3 hours of her life were missing. She remembered brushing her teeth before bed, pulling the blankets up to her chin. Then, nothing. A blank white wall in her memory. She didn't remember the dream she had. She didn't remember waking up. She didn't remember the first 3 hours of her morning routine. No headache, no dizziness, just a gap, like a page torn out of a book. Over 60, your brain is already fighting battles you can't see. But what she described was more than age. It was a leak. We think of leaks as something we can hear, a dripping faucet, a hiss of air. But the most dangerous leaks are silent. This one doesn't drain water, it drains you. Night after night, while you think you're resting, your brain may be drowning in its own waste. And the most frightening part? You won't feel it happening. No pain, no fever, no warning, just a slow, irreversible drift away from the person you used to be. There is a cleaning crew in your brain, a hidden network called the glymphatic system. While you're awake, it works at a crawl, sweeping small bits of debris from your brain's busy streets. But at night, when you sink into deep, slow wave sleep, the crew moves in full force. The brain's cells shrink, making room for cerebrospinal fluid to flush through, washing away toxins, including beta amyloid, a sticky protein that chokes brain cells and is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. In youth, this nightly cleaning is automatic, but after 60, the rhythm falters. The crew is slower, the pipes are narrower, and if the rhythm is interrupted, even for one night, the body remembers. Those toxins stay. They don't vanish on their own. They build. Some of you listening right now are already feeling the early signs. You walk into a room and forget why you came. A familiar name is just out of reach. You misplace your glasses, only to find them in the fridge. You tell yourself it's stress, or just aging. But these are warning flares, tiny signals that your brain's night shift isn't getting the job done. And if you keep ignoring them, the leak widens. I have seen what happens when it does. Memory slips grow larger. Reaction time slows. The ability to plan, to adapt, to follow a conversation, all fade, one thread at a time. And because the decline is gradual, you may not notice until the change is permanent. The body remembers. The damage accumulates silently. And there's no shortcut to scrub away years of missed cleaning. The glymphatic system doesn't work 24/7. It only works at its peak during deep, restorative sleep, and only when the brain's electrical rhythms are aligned with the body's. Rhythm is everything. If that rhythm is disturbed by fragmented sleep, by the wrong posture, by chronic stress, by certain late-night habits, the cleaning slows, sometimes by more than 70%. Imagine your garbage collection service only coming once a month instead of every night. How long before the streets overflow? That's your brain without its nightly flush. Here's the cruel irony. The older we get, the more vulnerable we become to rhythm disturbances, yet the less we notice them. Sleep patterns shift, breathing changes, blood vessels lose elasticity. Even small drops in oxygen at night can choke the glymphatic flow. I've treated patients who never snored, never complained about sleep, and yet their brain scans told a different story. Silent toxin buildup, early-stage cognitive decline, The medical journals call it impaired glymphatic clearance. I call it the nighttime brain leak, and it's not rare. Studies estimate that over 60, more than half of adults, have at least some disruption to this cleaning system, even if they feel fine. That means if you are listening to my voice right now, the odds are no longer in your favor. The leak is patient. It doesn't need to steal your memories overnight. It will take them a sliver at a time. A word here, a skill there. Until one morning you look in the mirror and realize the person staring back doesn't feel like you anymore. And by then, repairing the damage is like trying to glue back together a shattered glass. You can try, but the cracks will always be there. I tell my patients, the body remembers. It remembers every night you cut short, every time you delayed sleep, every time you let your rhythm slip. This isn't just about feeling groggy the next day. This is about what your brain holds on to and what it quietly lets go. And once it lets go, it doesn't come back. Some of you might be wondering, but Doc, I've been sleeping like this for decades and I'm fine. Maybe. Or maybe you've just been lucky so far. The leak doesn't hit everyone at the same pace, but when it catches up fast. I've seen patients go from just a little forgetful to unable to navigate their own neighborhood in under 18 months. Let me be clear. This is not just Alzheimer's. The same toxin buildup can raise your risk for Parkinson's, depression, even strokes you never feel. Microstrokes that chip away at brain tissue without any dramatic event to warn you. And because these changes happen at night, when no one is watching, they're easy to miss. So here's your first anchor. Rhythm is everything. If your nightly rhythm is broken, your brain's defenses fall one by one. The leak grows, and every leak leaves a mark. Now, I'm not telling you this to scare you for the sake of fear. I'm telling you because no one else will. Most doctors don't even check for glymphatic health. There's no standard blood test. No quick questionnaire. Unless you know the signs and the habits that put you at risk, you could go your entire life never realizing your brain has been slowly suffocating. And here's the most dangerous part. The habits that disrupt your glymphatic system are often the ones you think are harmless or even healthy. I'll tell you exactly what they are. But first, you need to hear what happened to that woman who came into my clinic, because her story might be your story. And what I discovered in her case changed the way I think about every patient over 60 who tells me they sleep fine. That's part 2. And I promise, you won't want to miss it. Her name was Margaret, 72 years old. Silver hair neatly pinned back, a cardigan that smelled faintly of lavender. When she walked into my clinic, she smiled the way someone smiles when they've rehearsed it in the car. Polite, but not entirely sure why they're here. She sat down slowly, holding her purse in her lap like a shield. And then she told me about the morning that changed everything. It had been a Tuesday. Margaret remembered turning off her bedside lamp at 10:14 p.m. She remembered the softness of her pillow, the distant hum of her refrigerator, the warm weight of her cat curling against her legs. She remembered thinking about the church luncheon she was helping to organize. And then, nothing. The next thing she knew, she was standing in her kitchen, staring at a pot of oatmeal boiling over, her cat meowing at her feet. The clock read 9:37 a.m. She couldn't remember waking up, couldn't remember feeding the cat, couldn't remember starting the oatmeal. 3 hours. gone. When she first told me this, I thought perhaps it was a medication side effect, or maybe she'd been unusually tired the night before. But the more she spoke, the more a different picture emerged. This wasn't the first time it had happened. There had been other mornings, smaller gaps, 10 minutes here, half an hour there, but she had brushed them off. Just getting older, she had told herself. The body remembers, Margaret, and it had been sending you warnings. I asked her to walk me through her evenings, what time she went to bed, how she positioned herself, whether she woke in the night. She said she slept well, no trouble falling asleep, no waking up gasping, no snoring her late husband had ever complained about. On paper, she was a perfect sleeper, but something didn't add up. Rhythm is everything. And Margaret's rhythm, though she couldn't feel it, had been breaking down for years. As she spoke, I noticed little things. How she paused to find the right word. How she repeated herself without realizing it. How her fingers twisted the strap of her purse over and over. Not from anxiety, but as if her body was trying to remember a rhythm her mind had lost. These were not signs of someone who had simply skipped breakfast one morning. These were the fingerprints of a nighttime leak. I asked her daughter to join us. She hesitated, then admitted she had noticed changes too. Margaret had been forgetting small appointments, mixing up the days she was supposed to volunteer, misplacing her glasses in strange places. The freezer, the mailbox. I thought maybe she was distracted, her daughter said. But now... Her voice trailed off. The body remembers, I told them both. And sometimes it remembers in silence, long before you notice the cracks. We ran tests. Her blood work was normal. No major nutrient deficiencies. No signs of a stroke on the MRI. But when we looked deeper, mapping the flow of cerebrospinal fluid during sleep, the problem was clear. Her glymphatic system was sluggish. Instead of sweeping away toxins during the night, the fluid barely moved. Waste proteins, the kind that choke neurons, were accumulating in tiny pockets. Not enough to cause dramatic symptoms yet, but enough to explain the missing hours. When I showed her the images, Margaret stared for a long time. It's like my brain is living in yesterday's trash, she said. She wasn't wrong. I told her that in a healthy brain, every night is like a cleanup crew arriving after the day's work, washing away debris, clearing the streets for a fresh start in the morning. But in her case, the crew had been showing up late, working slow, and leaving the job half done. Rhythm is everything, and hers was broken. The most chilling part? Margaret had no idea. She felt fine. She didn't feel sick. She didn't feel sleepy during the day. The leak had been happening quietly, almost politely, stealing only a few minutes here and there so she wouldn't notice. Until the morning it stole 3 hours. That was its mistake, or maybe its warning. I've seen this before, in patients who pride themselves on still having a good memory, in people who joke about senior moments, in those who insist they've slept well their entire lives. The nighttime brain leak doesn't always start with disease. It starts with disruption, in breathing, in posture, in the micro-rhythms of sleep that the body depends on. And once the leak begins, it doesn't stop on its own. I told Margaret something I tell all my patients. The body remembers every night you gave it less than it needed. It remembers every hour stolen by a bad habit you didn't even know was hurting you. And one day, without warning, it will show you what it's been keeping score of. For Margaret, it was a missing morning. For others, it's getting lost on the way to the grocery store they've been visiting for 30 years. For some, it's forgetting the name of a lifelong friend. Margaret asked me if this meant she was getting Alzheimer's. I told her not necessarily, but also not to be reassured by that. The toxins building up in her brain were the same ones that, over time, could lead to it. Her leak might take years to cause major damage, or it might accelerate without warning. Rhythm is everything, and the wrong rhythm can make years feel like months. Before she left, I asked her one more question. Had anything about her nights changed in the last decade? She thought for a long time. Then she mentioned something small, something she had never considered important. And when she said it, the entire pattern fell into place. I realized exactly why her brain's cleanup crew had been slowing down. That is where part 3 begins. Because the habit Margaret thought was harmless is one I see in more than half my patients over 60. And if you're listening to me right now, there's a good chance you're doing it too. Tonight. Margaret's small detail sounded innocent. Too innocent. She told me that sometime in her early 60s, she had started propping herself up in bed at night to read on her tablet before sleep. At first it was for 20 minutes, then an hour, sometimes longer. She said it helped her wind down, but over the years, she had begun falling asleep in that half-reclined position. Chin tilted slightly forward, shoulders rounded, head angled just enough to close her airway by a few millimeters. She never felt it, never woke up gasping. But night after night, those few millimeters were enough to change everything. Let me explain. The glymphatic system is not magic. It's plumbing. It depends on a steady flow of cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, that moves through the brain tissue like a slow river, washing away the debris of thought, memory, and metabolism. That river needs two things: space and pressure. Space is created when your brain cells shrink slightly during deep sleep, opening channels for CSF to pass through. Pressure comes from the natural rhythm of your heartbeat and breathing, which gently push that fluid along. Now imagine what happens when your airway is partially closed, even by a fraction. You may still breathe, but each breath is shallower. Oxygen dips, carbon dioxide rises, your heart rate shifts, and the rhythm, the delicate synchronized pulse between heart, lungs, and brain, begins to falter. Rhythm is everything. Disrupt that rhythm and the CSF slows. The cleaning crew can't keep up. Waste stays behind. Margaret's posture was stealing minutes from her deep sleep every night. Instead of long, uninterrupted waves of slow brain activity, the signal for the cleanup to start, her brain was stuck in lighter stages, drifting in and out. The body remembers, and the body punishes inconsistency. Each night of partial cleaning left behind a little more residue. Over years, that residue became the morning fog she didn't notice, the misplaced keys, the missing hours. This is the part most people don't realize. You don't have to snore like a chainsaw or stop breathing for a full minute to have a problem. Even tiny repeated interruptions, a subtle shift in airway, a momentary dip in oxygen, can slash glymphatic flow by half or more. That's enough to double the time it takes to clear toxic proteins. And in a brain over 60, where clearance is already slower, that delay is costly. I've read the studies. One from the University of Rochester found that when deep sleep was reduced by just 25% to Amyloid beta levels in the brain jumped by more than 30% in a single night. Imagine what happens after a month, a year, a decade. The body remembers, and the body compounds your mistakes. Margaret's tablet habit wasn't just about posture. Blue light from the screen was delaying her brain's release of melatonin, the hormone that cues the shift into deep sleep. So even on nights she lay down properly, her brain was starting the cleanup late. The crew had less time before morning, and because she fell asleep mid-scroll, she often stayed in that semi-upright position all night, her chin still compressing her airway. Here's the cruel twist. Margaret thought she was doing something good for herself, reading, relaxing, avoiding TV, but she was unknowingly rehearsing the perfect conditions for a slow, silent leak. This is why I tell my patients, the habits that kill you rarely announce themselves as dangerous. They're quiet, comfortable. They fit neatly into your routine. And because they don't cause immediate pain, you repeat them without question. When I explained this to Margaret, she looked at me with something between disbelief and guilt. I thought I was just getting old, she said. And I told her the truth. Getting old doesn't cause this kind of leak. Disruption does. And rhythm disruption, night after night, is more damaging than most people can imagine. To understand why, you have to picture your brain as a city. During the day, it's busy, traffic everywhere, constant activity. At night, in deep sleep, the streets clear. Sanitation trucks, your CSF, roll through, cleaning every corner. But if the streets are still crowded, or if the trucks are delayed, or if they can't fit through narrow alleys because the buildings haven't made space, the garbage stays. And garbage left in the street isn't just ugly. It rots. It spreads. It attracts things you don't want. In the brain, that garbage is cellular waste, misfolded proteins, excess neurotransmitters. Left overnight, they interfere with signaling. They inflame tissue. They block nutrient delivery. And over time, they kill cells outright. That's the real leak, not the fluid itself, but the slow poison of what isn't removed. The vagus nerve plays a quiet but critical role here. It's the long wire connecting your brain to your body, regulating heart rate, digestion, even aspects of breathing. At night, its steady signaling helps maintain the slow, deep breathing that drives glymphatic flow. When posture or airway issues disrupt breathing, vagus nerve activity shifts. The pressure wave that pushes CSF weakens, and the leak widens. Margaret's case isn't rare. I've seen it in men who fall asleep in recliners watching the news, in women who stack pillows to ease shoulder pain, in anyone who tells me, I like to read in bed until I doze off. These small, comfortable positions, combined with light exposure, combined with aging vessels and tissues, conspire to chip away at the brain's nightly cleaning. And the tragedy is that you won't know it's happening until the damage is already well underway. The brain doesn't have pain sensors. It doesn't send an urgent alarm. The first sign is often the last reversible stage. Subtle memory slips, mild confusion, short temper, poor focus. Beyond that, the changes are much harder to undo. So if you take one thing from Margaret's story, let it be this: your nighttime posture, your breathing rhythm, and the timing of your sleep are not small details. They are the difference between a brain that wakes refreshed and one that wakes a little more damaged each day. And here's where we go next. In part 4, I'll give you the first 2 changes, simple, practical, that can stop the leak before it grows. But don't be fooled. They only work if you understand the rhythm they're protecting. That rhythm is everything. By now, you understand the danger. The leak doesn't make a sound. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't wake you up. But it changes you. One quiet night at a time. And every night you ignore it, the body remembers. I promised you in part 3 that we'd start fixing this. Tonight, I want you to do 2 things. They are simple. They cost nothing. And for many of my patients, they have made the difference between a brain that declines and a brain that holds its ground well into the 90s. Solution 1. The sleeping position reset. Your brain's cleaning crew works best when your airway is clear and your neck is aligned. That means sleeping on your side, preferably your left side, with your head supported so your chin doesn't tilt toward your chest. Why left side? Because your body's anatomy allows cerebrospinal fluid to drain more efficiently in that position, and your heart pumps with slightly less resistance. Studies from the University of Rochester and Stony Brook University have shown that glymphatic flow is significantly higher when people sleep on their side compared to their back or stomach. If you've spent years sleeping on your back in a recliner or propped up by pillows, this change will feel strange at first. But I've seen patients notice sharper mornings in just a week. One man, 78 years old, came to me with early memory fog. We adjusted nothing else, just his sleeping position and pillow height. Within 10 nights, he reported fewer mid-sentence pauses, better recall of names, and more energy in the morning. Rhythm is everything, and posture sets the rhythm for the night. Here's the key. Your pillow should keep your head in line with your spine. No bending forward, no tilting back. Your mouth should be able to close comfortably, encouraging nasal breathing. And if you need extra support, place a pillow between your knees to keep your hips aligned. Solution 2. The light cut-off ritual. Margaret's tablet habit wasn't just about posture. It was about timing. The hour before bed is sacred for your brain's rhythm. Blue light from screens, phones, tablets, TVs suppresses melatonin, the hormone that signals your brain to begin the shift into deep, slow-wave sleep. Without that signal, the cleaning crew starts late. And in brains over 60, late often means incomplete. Starting tonight, I want you to set a cutoff. 1 hour before your planned bedtime, every light in your home should shift to warm tones, and every screen should be off. If you must read, use a paper book or an e-reader with a true amber filter. Keep light levels low enough that your body feels the approach of night. This isn't about being old-fashioned. It's about giving your glymphatic system the full window it needs. I had a patient, a retired teacher, who swore she couldn't fall asleep without watching her favorite talk show. She agreed to replace that last hour with quiet music and a dim reading lamp. 2 weeks later, she told me her dreams were returning, vivid, colorful, something she hadn't experienced in years. Dreams are not just stories. They are signs of deeper sleep cycles re-emerging. Both of these changes, side sleeping and light cutoff, are not optional extras. They are the foundation. Without them, any other habit you try will be building on unstable ground. The body remembers your environment. If it learns that night is a time of noise, light, and awkward posture, it will keep that rhythm, and that rhythm will work against you. Now, some of you are thinking, that's it? That's too simple. But remember, Complexity doesn't always win against biology. The glymphatic system is ancient. It responds to primal cues: darkness, stillness, alignment. And the more you honor those cues, the more it works for you. But there's a third solution, one I rarely see discussed outside of certain neurology circles. It's not about light. It's not about posture. It's about something most people overlook entirely. And it's the fastest way I know to supercharge the cleaning crew's efficiency. In Part 5, I'll tell you what it is. And I'll tell you why, at over 100 years old, I still do it every night, without fail. Because rhythm is everything, and this is how you lock yours in place. For most people, the conversation ends with posture and light. And yes, they are critical. But after more than 70 years of practicing medicine, I can tell you, they are not enough. The third piece is quieter, easier to miss. And yet, without it, the rhythm never fully locks in. It's breathing. Not just take a deep breath breathing, but the slow, deliberate rhythm that signals your vagus nerve to guide your entire system into deep restoration. The vagus nerve, as I've told you before, is the main highway between your brain and your body. It doesn't just carry signals, it sets the tone. When you breathe slowly, deeply through your nose, your vagus nerve sends a message. Slow the heart, open the vessels, let the cleaning begin. When your breath is shallow, erratic, or blocked, that message is garbled. The cleanup crew never gets the full signal to start. I learned this long before we could measure glymphatic flow on a scan. I learned it from my own father. He lived to 98. Every night, before bed, he would sit by the window, close his eyes, and breathe as if he had all the time in the world. 4 counts in, 6 counts out, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes longer. He said it made his dreams clear and his mornings sharper. When I began my own nightly breathing, I was in my 30s. Now, at over 100, I've never stopped. 4 counts in through the nose, holding the breath for a moment, not forcing, just letting the lungs feel full. Then 6 counts out through the mouth, as if you're fogging a glass. Repeat. Let the shoulders drop. Let the jaw unclench. Let the heartbeat find its slowest, steadiest pace. Why does this matter for the leak? Because the pressure wave created by each deep breath helps push cerebrospinal fluid through the brain's channels. It's like priming a pump. The slower, steadier, and deeper the breaths, the more consistent the flow. Studies from NIH now confirm what my father knew without ever seeing a machine. Controlled breathing before sleep improves glymphatic clearance. I had a patient, Leonard, age 69, who came to me after 2 minor strokes. His scans showed toxin buildup and vascular stiffness. We changed his sleeping posture. We cut off screens an hour before bed. But the breakthrough came when he began nightly vagus nerve breathing. 3 weeks in, he told me, "Doc, I don't just feel better. I feel present again." His wife said he was following conversations more easily, laughing more, even remembering old song lyrics he hadn't sung in decades. This is not a miracle. It's rhythm. Rhythm is everything, and the body remembers the rhythm you give it every night. If you give it chaos, shallow breaths, irregular sleep, flashing screens, it will adapt to chaos. If you give it order, darkness, and breath, it will adapt to that too. For me, these 3 habits are non-negotiable: side sleeping, light cutoff, and nightly breathing. Together, they form the gate that protects your brain's cleanup crew. Leave any gate open, and the leak finds its way in. Now I know some of you are thinking, I'm too old to change. You're wrong. The glymphatic system never loses its ability to respond. It only needs the right conditions. I've seen improvements in patients in their 80s, even 90s. The body remembers, yes, but it can also relearn. But there is one more thing you need to hear. The most important thing I will tell you in this entire series. Because even with these habits, there is a truth about aging brains that no one likes to talk about. And if you don't understand it, you will fall into the same trap as millions before you. That truth is what part 6 is all about. It is my final message, the one I hope you remember long after my voice fades. When we began this journey, I told you about a woman who lost 3 hours of her life without warning. I told you about a leak that makes no sound, causes no pain, and leaves no bruise. And I told you the body remembers. Every night you neglect, every hour you cut short. Now you know the truth. This leak isn't just a disease's fault, it's a rhythm problem. And rhythm is everything. You've learned the 3 gates you must close every night. 1, side sleeping with your head aligned, airway open, posture steady. 2, the light cutoff ritual 1 hour before bed to let melatonin lead you into deep sleep. 3, the nightly vagus nerve breathing to set the pressure and pace that push your brain's cleaning crew into action. These are simple, but simplicity is deceptive. The older we get, the more we believe that big problems require complicated solutions. That is the final trap. That is the truth I promised you in part 5. Aging brains do not fail because they cannot be fixed. They fail because no one protects the small nightly rituals that keep them alive. I've seen men who survived heart attacks, cancer, even war, lose themselves to this leak because they thought sleep was just sleep. I've seen women who raised families, built communities, outlived spouses, slowly fade because no one told them their nightly rhythm mattered more than any pill they could take. At over 100, I can tell you this. My mind is not sharp because I'm lucky. It's sharp because I guard my nights like treasure. I don't let a screen steal my rhythm. I don't let my posture choke my breath. I don't let my mind race past the point of stillness. The body remembers, and it rewards the rhythms you give it, for better or for worse. If you're over 60, tonight matters more than last night. You cannot get back what was lost, but you can stop the leak before it takes more. Start with these 3 gates. Guard them. Teach them to the people you love. Make them so natural that you wouldn't dare sleep without them. Because here's the final warning. If you do nothing, the leak doesn't wait. It doesn't pause out of kindness. It will take a little more of you tonight, and a little more tomorrow, until one day you wake up, and the person you were is already gone. But if you act now, if you align your posture, cut the light, and breathe into the vagus rhythm, you give your brain the chance to wake whole, to remember, to stay yours for years longer than anyone thought possible. This is why I make these videos, not to scare you into paralysis, but to scare you into action. The difference between fear and urgency is whether you move. So move tonight. Guard your rhythm, because your brain is still listening. And if you found this lesson worth your time, I invite you to join me here, on Dark Habit, for the next one. We have more to uncover. More quiet dangers hiding in plain sight. Subscribe now, so you never miss the warnings and the habits that could keep you whole. Your body remembers. Rhythm is everything. I'll see you in the next episode.